In today's story, a new employee walks into his first day of work and gets destroyed by his boss. She said he was incompetent, that he didn't deserve to be there, that she'd make sure he didn't last the week. But at the quarterly board meeting 3 days later, she discovered that the useless new hire was actually the founder's son, and he'd been watching everything. This is a story about power, about respect, and about why you should never judge someone by their first day on the job. Stay until the end. What happens in that boardroom? Unforgettable. TechVision Solutions was one of the fastest-growing software companies in Seattle. Founded 15 years ago by a brilliant engineer named Robert Chen. Started in a garage, grew into a 500-employee company worth $800 million. They specialized in enterprise software that helped companies streamline operations. And walking into the lobby on a Monday morning was a young man named David Chen. 26 years old, fresh MBA from Stanford, sharp mind, quiet demeanor. He wore a simple suit from Macy's, carried a basic briefcase, looked nervous. To anyone who saw him, David looked like exactly what he was supposed to be, a new employee, someone starting at the bottom, someone hoping to prove himself. And that's exactly what David wanted them to think. Because David Chen wasn't just any new hire. He was Robert Chen's son, the founder's only child. David had grown up watching his father build TechVision from nothing, seeing the late nights, the sacrifices, the obsession with creating something that mattered. But Robert had never handed David anything. "If you want to work here," Robert had told him after David finished his MBA, "you work like everyone else. You start as an analyst, you earn every promotion. No special treatment, no one knows who you are." "Why?" David had asked. "Because I need to know you can lead this company someday, and you can't lead people you don't understand. So you learn from the ground up. You see how employees are really treated. You understand what it's like to have a boss, to struggle, to prove yourself." David had agreed. So for the past month, David had gone through the regular application process, resume submitted online, phone screens, panel interviews. No one knew he was Robert Chen's son. HR thought his last name was just a coincidence. And today, David was starting his first day as a junior business analyst in the operations department, reporting to the director of operations, a woman named Jennifer Walsh. David had never met her. His father barely talked about her, but he was about to discover why. David checked in at reception and was directed to the 12th floor, operations department. The receptionist called ahead. "Jennifer, your new analyst is here, David Chen." A moment later, a woman emerged from a corner office. Jennifer Walsh was 42 years old, 15 years at TechVision, sharp, ambitious, and known for being tough but fair. At least, that's what her LinkedIn said. She looked David up and down with barely concealed disappointment. "You're David?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," David said, extending his hand, excited to be here. Jennifer shook his hand briefly. "Follow me." She led him to a cubicle in the back corner of the department, smallest one, no window. "This is your desk," Jennifer said. "Computers already set up. Login info is on the sticky note." "Thank you," David said. Jennifer crossed her arms. "Let me be clear about something. I didn't want to hire you." David blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I wanted someone with 3 years of experience," Jennifer continued, "but HR overruled me, said we needed to hit our diversity hiring goals, so here you are." David felt his jaw tighten. "I have an MBA from Stanford. I interned at McKinsey. I think I'm qualified." "On paper, maybe," Jennifer said, "but I've seen dozens of Stanford kids come through here thinking they're hot shit. Most of them can't handle real work. They want to strategize and consult, not execute." She leaned against his cubicle wall. "So let me set expectations. You're here to do whatever I tell you to do. Data entry, filing, making copies. I don't care about your degree. You prove yourself through work, not credentials." "Understood," David said, keeping his voice even. "Good," Jennifer said. "There's a report I need compiled by 5 p.m. All the files are on the shared drive. Instructions are in your email. Don't screw it up." She walked away. David sat down at his computer and logged in. The report, she mentioned, was a 200-page data compilation that would take at least 8 hours of manual work, and it was 9:30 a.m. David took a breath and got started. By 4:30 p.m., David's eyes were burning. But he'd finished the report. He'd found errors in the source data and corrected them, reorganized the structure to make it more readable, added visualizations to highlight key findings. He sent it to Jennifer with 10 minutes to spare. At 4:55, Jennifer called him into her office. David walked in. Jennifer was staring at her computer screen, at his report. "Did you change the format?" she asked, not looking at him. "Yes," David said. "I thought the visualizations would make the data easier to understand." "I didn't ask you to think," Jennifer interrupted. "I asked you to compile the data. That's it." "This is exactly what I was talking about," Jennifer said, finally looking at him. "Stanford kids who think they know better than everyone else, who can't follow simple instructions." David stayed calm. "I followed the instructions. I compiled all the data you requested. I just presented it in a more effective way." "You mean you wasted time making it pretty instead of just doing what you were told," Jennifer said. "That's not initiative. That's arrogance." She deleted his email. "Redo it. Original format. On my desk by 8 a.m. tomorrow." David stared at her. "You want me to redo 8 hours of work because I made it better?" "I want you to learn how to follow instructions," Jennifer said. "Now get out of my office." David walked back to his cubicle. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, because he'd just seen exactly what his father had wanted him to see, how some managers treated people they thought had no power. The next morning, David arrived at 6 a.m. to redo the report. He reformatted it exactly as Jennifer had originally specified. No improvements, no visualizations, just raw data compilation. He delivered it to her desk at 7:45. At 9 a.m., Jennifer sent an email to the entire operations team. Subject: Quality Standards. "Team, I wanted to address an issue we encountered yesterday. Our new analyst submitted work that did not meet our standards. This is a reminder that we follow established procedures for a reason. Innovation is welcome after you've proven you can execute the basics. Let's all commit to excellence. Jennifer." David read the email at his desk. Everyone in the department could see it. Several coworkers glanced at him sympathetically. One of them, a woman named Sarah, who sat 2 cubicles over, walked past and whispered, "Don't let it get to you. She does this to everyone." "Thanks," David said quietly. But Jennifer wasn't done. At the 10 a.m. team meeting, Jennifer addressed the group. "I want to talk about accountability," she said. "When we hire new people, there's always a learning curve, but there's a difference between learning and not caring." She looked directly at David. "And here's what I believe. Your degree doesn't matter. Your previous internships don't matter. What matters is whether you can do the job I'm asking you to do, period." After the meeting, Sarah approached David in the break room. "That was brutal," she said. "I'm sorry." "It's fine," David said. "It's not fine," Sarah said. "She's been like this ever since Robert promoted her to director last year. The power went to her head." David looked up. "Robert? You mean Mr. Chen, the founder?" "Yeah," Sarah said. "He promoted her because she delivers results, but she's awful to work for. 3 people on our team quit in the past 6 months because of her." "Does he know?" David asked. Sarah shrugged. "I don't know.
Robert's pretty hands-off. He trusts his directors to manage their teams." David nodded slowly. "I see." What Sarah didn't know was that Robert Chen was about to get a very detailed report about exactly how Jennifer Walsh managed her team.
Over the next 3 days, Jennifer made David's life hell. She gave him assignments with impossible deadlines. When he completed them, she criticized minor details. She made him redo a presentation 4 times for inconsistent formatting. She excluded him from important meetings, then criticized him for not being engaged. On Thursday afternoon, Jennifer called David into her office again. "David, I'm going to be honest with you," she said. "I don't think you're cut out for this role." David stayed silent. "You have the credentials on paper," Jennifer continued, "but you don't have the right attitude. You seem to think you're above the work, that you're too good for the grunt work." "That's not true," David started. "I'm not finished," Jennifer interrupted. "I'm recommending to HR that we terminate you after your probationary period ends next week. I don't think you're a good fit." David took a breath. "Can I ask you something?" "What?" "You haven't given me a single piece of constructive feedback. You've only criticized and belittled. You set me up to fail with impossible deadlines and then blame me when I struggle. That's not management. That's bullying." Jennifer stood up. "How dare you?" "I'm not finished," David said, echoing her words. "I've watched you for 3 days. You treat everyone on this team like they're disposable. Sarah, Mike, James, they're terrified of you. They work long hours because they're afraid of losing their jobs, not because they're motivated." "Get out of my office," Jennifer said coldly. "I'm leaving, but I want you to know something. Great leaders inspire. They develop their people. They create environments where employees want to excel. You do none of that. You just exercise power because you can." He walked toward the door. "You're done here," Jennifer called after him. "I'm calling HR right now. You won't even make it to the end of the day." David paused at the door. "Do what you need to do." He walked out. But he didn't go to his desk. He went straight to the elevator and pressed the button for the executive floor. It was time to talk to his father. David was finishing his MBA at Stanford when his father called. "David, I need to tell you something," Robert said, "about why I built this company." "Okay," David said. "When I first came to this country, I worked as a janitor," Robert said. "I had a PhD in computer science from Taiwan, but nobody would hire me. They said my degree didn't count, that I needed American experience." David had heard this story before, but he listened. "So I cleaned offices at night," Robert continued, "and one of those offices was at a tech company. The CEO there, a man named Walter, he saw me reading a programming book one night, asked me about it. I showed him some code I'd written." Robert's voice grew quiet. "Walter gave me a chance, hired me as a junior developer even though I was overqualified, mentored me, taught me about American business culture, encouraged me to take risks." "And then you started TechVision?" David said. "Yes, and I promised myself that if I ever built something successful, I would treat employees the way Walter treated me, with dignity, with respect, with the belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves." He paused. "That's why I need you to go through this process, David, because one day you'll run this company, and you need to understand what it feels like to be powerless, to have a boss who can make or break your career, to know whether we're living up to the values I tried to build." David had understood then, and now, 3 days into his experiment, he understood even better. David knocked on his father's office door. "Come in," Robert called. David entered. Robert looked up from his computer and smiled. "David, how's your first week going?" David sat down. "I need to talk to you about Jennifer Walsh." Robert's smile faded. "What happened?" For the next 30 minutes, David told him everything.
The insults, the impossible deadlines, the public humiliation, the culture of fear. Robert listened without interrupting. When David finished, Robert was quiet for a long moment. "Do you have documentation?" he asked. "Emails, screenshots of the messages she sent to the team, and I recorded our last conversation." He pulled out his phone. Robert held up a hand. "That won't be necessary. I believe you." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking downtown Seattle. "I promoted Jennifer because she gets results. Our operational efficiency improved 30% under her leadership. Costs went down, productivity went up." He turned to face David. "But I never asked how she achieved those results. I assumed she was just a strong manager." "She's effective because people are afraid of her, not because she's good at what she does." Robert nodded slowly. "We have a board meeting tomorrow, quarterly review. All the directors present their department results." He looked at his son. "I want you there." "What?" David said. "Dad, I'm a junior analyst. I can't just—" "You can," Robert said, "because starting tomorrow, everyone's going to know you're my son, and we're going to have a conversation about leadership."
That evening, Sarah from operations sent David a message on the company Slack. "Hey, I heard Jennifer called HR about you. Just wanted to say that everyone on the team knows she's wrong. You're doing great. Don't let her break you." David stared at the message. Then he typed back, "Thank you, that means a lot. And don't worry, things are about to change." "What do you mean?" "You'll see tomorrow." The next morning, Jennifer arrived at 8 a.m. to find an email from Robert Chen. Subject: Mandatory board meeting attendance. "Jennifer, please join us for the 10 a.m. board meeting in Conference Room A. All operations team members are invited to observe. Robert." Jennifer frowned. She'd never invited the entire team to a board meeting before. But if Robert wanted them there, fine. Maybe it was a chance to showcase her department's success. At 9:59, Jennifer led her team to Conference Room A. The large glass-walled room was filled with board members, executives, and department heads. Robert Chen sat at the head of the table, and sitting directly to his right was David. Jennifer froze. "Everyone, please sit," Robert said warmly. "I know this is unusual, having our operations team join us, but I wanted everyone to witness something important today." Jennifer sat down, her mind racing. Why was David sitting next to Robert? Why was he even in this meeting? "Before we begin our quarterly review," Robert said, "I want to introduce someone. This is my son, David Chen. Some of you may have met him this week as our newest operations analyst." The room went completely silent. Jennifer felt the blood drain from her face. "David graduated from Stanford. He could have worked anywhere, but he chose to start here, at the bottom, learning our business, understanding what it's like to be a regular employee at TechVision." Robert looked directly at Jennifer, and what he discovered was very interesting. Robert stood up. "I founded this company 15 years ago with a simple philosophy," he said, "that every employee deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, that great companies are built on great cultures, that results matter, but how you achieve those results matters even more." He clicked a remote, and a slide appeared on the screen. TechVision core values: respect for every individual, collaboration over competition, growth through learning, integrity in all actions. "These aren't just words on our website," Robert said. "They're supposed to be how we operate every single day." He looked around the room. David spent 3 days in our operations department, and he documented his experience. Another slide appeared, screenshots of Jennifer's emails, quotes from their conversations.
What he found was a department where employees are afraid to make mistakes, where innovation is punished, where people work late not because they're motivated, but because they're terrified. Jennifer's face was bright red. "I take full responsibility for this," Robert continued. "I promoted Jennifer because she delivered operational improvements, and I didn't ask how she achieved them." He turned to Jennifer. "But now I know. You achieved them through fear, through intimidation, through treating people as disposable resources instead of human beings." Jennifer stood up. "Robert, let me explain." "Sit down," Robert said quietly. Jennifer sat. "I've spent the past 24 hours talking to your team, not just David, everyone. Sarah told me about the Sunday emails you send requiring responses within the hour. Mike told me about the time you made him miss his daughter's birthday because of a non-urgent deadline. James told me he's been looking for other jobs because he can't handle the stress anymore." He clicked to another slide. "Operations turnover rate, 45% annual rate. Company average, 12% annual rate. Your department has nearly 4 times the turnover rate of the rest of the company," Robert said. "That's not leadership. That's toxicity." Jennifer's voice shook. "But our numbers—" "Your numbers are good, but they come at a cost that I'm not willing to pay. You've broken the culture I tried to build. You've violated every value this company stands for." He paused. "Effective immediately, you're no longer director of operations." Jennifer gasped. "You're firing me?" "No," Robert said. "I'm demoting you. You'll return to your previous role as senior analyst. You'll report to the new director of operations, and you'll undergo mandatory leadership training." "Who's the new director?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely audible. "Sarah Martinez," Robert said. "She's been with us for 8 years. She's respected by the team. She embodies our values. And unlike you, she knows that leadership is about serving your team, not ruling over them." Sarah, sitting at the table, looked shocked. "Mr. Chen, You deserve this," Robert said kindly. "David told me about how you supported him, how you support everyone on the team. That's the kind of leader we need." He turned back to Jennifer. "You have a choice. Accept the demotion and commit to changing, or resign. Either way, your time as a director is over." Jennifer sat there destroyed. I'll accept the demotion," she whispered. "Good," Robert said, "because I believe people can change, but they have to want to." He addressed the entire room. "Let this be a lesson to all of us. Title doesn't make you a leader. Character does. Compassion does. The willingness to build others up instead of tearing them down." He looked at David. "My son taught me that this week, by being brave enough to tell me the truth, by documenting what he saw, by caring more about this company's culture than about protecting his own position." Robert's voice grew thick with emotion. "That's the kind of leader I want running TechVision someday. Someone who has the courage to speak up, the integrity to do what's right, the empathy to understand what employees go through." The room erupted in applause. David sat there, humbled. Jennifer sat there, humiliated. And Sarah sat there, elevated. Justice had been served.
3 months later, the operations department had transformed. Sarah was a natural leader. She held one-on-ones with every team member, implemented flexible work schedules, created a mentorship program. Turnover dropped to 8%. Employee satisfaction scores went from 42% to 91%. Productivity actually increased by 12% because people were motivated instead of terrified. Jennifer, working as a senior analyst again, kept her head down.
She arrived on time, left on time, did her work competently. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, she began to change. One day she approached David in the break room. "Can I talk to you?" she asked quietly. "Of course," David said. They sat at a table in the corner. "I owe you an apology," Jennifer said. "A real one, not a corporate "I'm sorry if I offended you" apology. An actual apology." David waited. "I was awful to you," Jennifer continued. "I was awful to everyone. I convinced myself that being tough was the same as being effective, that results justified the means." Her voice cracked. "But I was wrong. I created an environment where people were miserable, and that's not leadership. That's just cruelty." "Why did you do it?" David asked gently. Jennifer took a breath. "Because I've spent my entire career trying to prove I belong. I'm a woman in tech. I've been talked over, dismissed, underestimated, so I thought I needed to be hard, to show I wasn't weak." She looked down. "But somewhere along the way, I became the thing I hated. I became the boss who makes people feel small." David nodded. "I understand that impulse. But strength isn't about making others feel weak. It's about lifting them up." "I know that now," Jennifer said. "The leadership training, it's been eye-opening. I'm learning how to motivate without intimidating, how to challenge without crushing." She looked at him. "I'm sorry for how I treated you. You didn't deserve that. Nobody did." "I accept your apology," David said, "and I'm glad you're learning." "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said. "Sure." "Why didn't you just tell me who you were on day one? You could have avoided everything." David smiled slightly. "Because then I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn, and neither would you." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Thank you for that, even though it sucked." "You're welcome, even though it sucked." They both laughed. It was the first real conversation they'd ever had.
1 year later. David had moved up to senior analyst, then manager, then director of strategy. He earned every promotion through merit. Sarah was thriving as VP of operations. Jennifer had completed her leadership training and was doing solid work as a team lead. She'd never be promoted back to director, but she'd become a decent manager, someone who learned from her mistakes. And at the annual company meeting, Robert Chen gave a speech. "This year, I want to talk about what TechVision really is," he said. "We're not just a software company. We're a community, a family, a place where people should feel safe, valued, respected." He looked at David, sitting in the front row. "My son taught me something important last year. He taught me that you can't build a great company if you're not willing to see what's really happening, to listen to your employees, to hold leaders accountable." Robert smiled, "And he taught me that sometimes the best way to understand your business is to work in it at every level with no shortcuts." The crowd applauded. After the meeting, David walked with his father back to the executive offices. "You know," Robert said, "I think you're ready." "Ready for what?" David asked. "To start learning the CEO role," Robert said. "I'm not retiring yet, but in 5 years, I want to hand this company to you, and I want to know it's in good hands." David felt a surge of emotion. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," said Robert, "because you've already proven what kind of leader you are. You stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. You cared about people more than your own comfort. That's what makes a great CEO." They walked in silence for a moment. Then David said, "Dad, thank you." "For what?" "For making me start at the bottom, for not giving me special treatment, for teaching me what this company really stands for." Robert put his hand on his son's shoulder.
That's what fathers do. We prepare our children not by protecting them from struggle, but by teaching them how to handle it. "You taught me well," David said. "No," Robert said, "you taught yourself. I just gave you the opportunity."
5 years later, David Chen became CEO of TechVision Solutions. One of his first acts was implementing a program where every executive spent 1 week per year working in a frontline role, answering customer service calls, processing orders, sitting in cubicles, understanding what employees really experienced. The program was initially controversial, but it transformed the company culture, because when executives understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of their policies, they make better policies. Jennifer Walsh eventually left TechVision, not because she was forced out, but because she realized she'd become a toxic leader and needed to rebuild herself elsewhere. She wrote David a letter before she left. "Thank you for not destroying me," she wrote. "Thank you for giving me a chance to learn. I'm taking everything I learned here to my next role, and I promise I'll be better." David framed that letter, not because he was proud of exposing her, but because he was proud she'd grown. That's what real leadership looks like, not crushing people who fail, but giving them the chance to become better. Robert Chen had built a company on that principle, and David Chen was carrying it forward. Because at the end of the day, companies aren't built on strategies or products. They're built on how you treat people, when they have power and when they don't. That's a lesson Jennifer learned the hard way, and it's a lesson we should all remember. Before we judge someone by their first day, before we exercise power just because we can, before we forget that every employee is somebody's son or daughter or parent or friend, and they all deserve dignity. That's what TechVision stands for, and that's what every company should stand for. Never judge someone by their position, because the new employee you destroy today might be the CEO who determines your future tomorrow. But more importantly, treat people with respect because it's the right thing to do, not because they might be powerful. That's what separates good leaders from toxic ones. That's what builds great companies, and that's what creates cultures worth being part of.